Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this launch of my new book, Wrestling with Freedom. Before we start, I'd like to introduce you to the swan, because it's a very significant feature of our picture today. Some of you will know that we are moving house, and I was in a meeting a couple of days ago where the house staging painting that had been put here to sell the house was being removed while I was in a meeting. It was as if the bailiffs had come and were chucking us out. And I had a completely blank wall, and people always say, oh, Sarah, it's so boring when you have a blank wall. So I said to Nico, my husband, please, can you bring your painting of the swan and put it behind my desk? So some of you will know that I often have this background without the swan. We have a version of the painting without the swan that I made from a photo, but I decided today we would have the whole thing because the swan introduces this beautiful energy of peace into the room, which in a way is the destination and the center of what we're going to be exploring and what I'm exploring inside this new book. So also just a little bit about the launch itself. Because my community is global, I'm doing a kind of double launch. But I'm doing each of the launches differently, so they're going to come from a different angle. I know there are some people here who like to listen to YouTubes and things like that. So if you want to, there will be another version which will look at the whole story differently. I'm reading different pieces in the other launch from what I'm going to do today. So we sort of have a launch that's split into two sections. This is the largely North American version of it today. So I'm going to tell a little bit of a story about this book, because I did not set out to write a book, which usually seems to be the case with me. I never intend to write a book. I never think of myself as an author, but books sometimes tell me that what I've written is what they're supposed to be, if you see what I mean. It's kind of something that I write tells me that it has to be a book. And I think, oh, okay, what am I supposed to do with that then? I'm getting a bit better at it now because this is the second time that's happened very clearly. But in a way, I could say that there was a starting moment built on many previous starting moments that was in January 2018. And I was in a recording studio in a school full of chairs piled up. You know what school is like during the holidays, and all the chairs are piled up everywhere. And it was kind of like, it was the only studio we could find. I was there with my very dear friend, Gary Malkin, and we had gone there to improvise together. He's a wonderful composer. You were just listening to his music. And I had the feeling that I could speak to his music. We hadn't done it before. We'd home. We went into the studio and we sat down. And I want to play you the very first thing that we recorded, because we didn't have any practice. We just sat down and did it. And in that moment of recording this, I found a voice in me that I hadn't experienced before. And it is that voice that leads to the publishing of the book. I'm getting a message that my voice is breaking up at the moment. Thomas, is that the case? Are you having that too? All right, let me just, before we do anything, let me check. Oh, I know why. All right, I'm going to try changing my internet. We're on Starlink, which normally never fails, and it failed this morning for more than an hour. And I've been switched onto another server. I'm gonna just try switching over because it's a much more stable thing if it's working. All right, can you hear me? Am I back? Hopefully this, no, not quite here yet on my end. I'm gonna let it go all the way through. All right, I'm here. Yeah, I can see nodding faces. That's excellent. Keep talking sounds good. Thank you, Helen J. So yes, I'm going to play you something. Some of you will have heard it before. And this, as I said, is where I found a voice inside me that came from a very different place. And I'll say a little bit more about that after we've listened to it. So
Do you know how beautiful you are? Have you ever stopped to look at yourself? To see yourself in your truth? In the clarity of who you are? In your magnificence? If only you could see what I can see. If only you could know what I know of you. You would stand before yourself in awe. You would see yourself you would feel yourself. You would know yourself. And so I invite you in this moment to see how beautiful you are. To see yourself in clarity, in simplicity, in your true nature. I invite you to see yourself. You are so beautiful.
What was surprising for me was that as I spoke those words, they were what I was seeing personally. And at the same time, I knew that it was what life was seeing as well. So that as I spoke, I was speaking not only as Sarah, I was speaking as life looking at itself, seeing its own beauty and reveling in its own beauty that is expressed through you, through me, through each one of us. And every one of us is included in those words. And it was an answer, in a way, to something that I'd been looking for. If you know my other book, Love, Money, Money Loves You, that's what we could call a purely channeled book. There is no content in that book that was written by Sarah McCrum. She did the handwriting, but she didn't get the words. The words came through me or came to me very much. When I recorded Beautiful, what we've just listened to, it was my words, but it was like all of our words together. And that was the beginning of a journey for me that enabled me to directly experience the energy that I was communicating at a level that I never had before. And that was necessary because for anyone here who does channel, and that there are probably many of you, that there can be a very big gap between the information you're able to access through deep intuition or deep knowing or through channeling and what you're actually able to express and live yourself. And that gap can create a great deal of pain. because you always feel inadequate. It's like, I know this is the truth. I know this is, you know, spiritually right, but I just can't, I'm not that person. I can't be there. And how do you live with that gap? And I think if you channel a lot, it can get bigger and bigger and bigger, because we can channel higher and more beautiful things all the time. But how do we live a human life with that knowledge? And so I was looking for a way to be able to actually keep the channel open and live at the same time. And when I recorded that, it was like channeled from inside me, not outside me. It was me, and it was all of it at the same time. And that has really changed me, because that's eventually became my wish, is how do I do business that way? How do I do business in the way that I recorded that transformance? How do we live in this way where we are open to the most powerful, beautiful, important information, but we don't feel disjointed from it or disconnected from it, or like, I know what I should do, but the honest truth about me is, and there's a lot of honest truth about all of us, you know, we live messy lives, and that's always going to be the case. And so the challenge to live a messy life with knowledge of truth and beauty and goodness, I think, is a worthy challenge for us as human beings. So what I really discovered through that was a new way of transmitting energy, which is what happens when we communicate. When we communicate with other people, we're transmitting energy. And the way it's received depends very much on how we transmit it. And when we can find that inner alignment, all the way from that highest truth down to the gritty interior reality of my very human being, then the way people receive what we speak is completely different. And there's a kind of universal truth that combines with the individual truth. They come together in a very beautiful way. And that, for me, that's been my exploration, and is really what this book got produced out of. Because what happened initially during COVID, when there was all that craziness going on, and if you read the couple of chapters I supplied you with already, you'll know this. What happened in all that time when we were so polarized and so divided, and my own community, the teaching community that I have, we were having discussions. People were discussions, you know, do I vaccinate? Do I not vaccinate? What about my children? I've been excluded from the school my children are in. I'm not allowed to be a parent there anymore because I've made a decision about my child's health. This crazy kind of stuff that was going on. And it was so confusing. And I was searching for a way to get above or beyond or inside to navigate that polarization. Because one thing I knew was that that was not the right way to approach something. Whatever was going on, whatever was true and whatever was not true, and whatever was true from this perspective, but not true from that perspective, I knew that we couldn't unite and we couldn't solve a problem and we couldn't do anything really valuable when we are divided. And so my first piece of writing just poured out of me one day. I wrote the words "enough is enough," and it's like, I then wrote, it was like a transformance, like the beautiful recording, but Gary wasn't there, there was no music. So I started to kind of write my own music, if you like, through the words. And I read it back to myself and I read it to Nico, and it's like, oh, this really says something that is not just about me. This speaks for so many of us. And I shared that actually in an email at that time, and a lot of people responded to it. And it very nicely ends saying, okay, let's tell a new story. What is your story? But the reality of my life, and I suspect many of our lives, is that we can tell new stories because we have learned how to do vision. You know, for decades, we've been talking about vision, but how connected are we to that vision? How often does that vision actually just fall on a pavement somewhere? It's like, I had this vision, but what I'm living doesn't connect with it. It doesn't feel like the vision that I thought that I had. And there's a huge amount of disappointment. There can be despair. There can be very challenging feelings inside this. I think especially for those of us who are believers in the future. You know, I'm an optimist by nature. I know that we can do amazing things, and to actually face the world we're living in, and personal experiences that we all have, you know, very painful experiences at times, and to put that together with the beauty that we know is possible. We know it in our being. That was a real challenge. And so from time to time, I found myself writing again. And it was writing from that same place, from deep inside myself. But whenever I read what I'd written, it was like, oh my goodness, this isn't just about me. This is about us. This is about our collective situation and our collective navigation of societies that have become, in many ways, very bullying and controlling and manipulative and deceptive. There's a lot hidden, there's a lot being revealed now. There's a lot of work for us to do somehow to face the society that we live in and we comply with every single day. And mostly we don't really stand up and do a lot about it. And I wanted to be one of those people who could do something about it, because that speaks to me, to my heart, to my vision of myself, I suppose. But I could feel my lack of power. And I'd experienced it, you know, I'd experienced so many things that didn't work in the way that I wanted to. So I'm going to read you one piece now that I think many people will be able to relate to, because it's really about betrayal. Most of us have probably experienced at some time in our personal or our professional lives a strong experience of betrayal, especially people who do feel called to make a difference, because we often have a lot of karma which hovers beneath the surface, horrible things we've done in past lives, basically, that we've never really sorted out and linger in our consciousness and then play out during this lifetime. And I've had a lot of that. I have had a huge amount of karma to deal with. So this was a journey that, you know, I had to go into the darkness, if you like, of my own self in order to find a deeper truth about life. So this is called Becoming Human. No, am I sharing the screen? Can somebody tell me, am I sharing my screen? Or are you seeing me? No, okay, sorry, somebody just wrote a message and I was wondering about that. All right, Becoming Human. I have faced the bitterness of betrayal more than once, the searing pain of abandonment, the loss of something that was once held sacred, the void of a gap that was filled with another human just the day before. How is it possible for life to turn so fast? How does the moment arrive where everything is different from how it was before? Questions arise so thick and so fast. What did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Do I deserve it? What's going on? I don't understand. It makes no sense. I feel lost, destabilized, and unutterably sad. My vision of a beautiful world is ripped away, my dreams harshly interrupted. My sense of self is rocked, its very foundation threatened to the core. The ground I stood on is no longer there. My internal structure is collapsing. My future dissolves, and I have no control over its direction anymore. A wave is breaking over me, tossing me and tumbling me. I don't know what is up or what is down. I don't know when to breathe and when to hold my breath. I don't even know what is really going on. I only know that it didn't have to be this way. There is a better way. I know you're hurt. I know there were things that needed to be sorted out. I know that change was on the way. But why throw out everything for the sake of something? Is it necessary to be so violent in your response just because you couldn't see a better way? What happened to all those values, those beautiful beliefs and dreams, those creations we initiated that would fulfill their destiny in the future? They were meant to be shared, not abandoned. They were meant to be shared, not taken over. They were meant to be shared, not possessed. They were meant to be shared, not to be betrayed. They didn't have to be shared in a rigid form, defined by the past. Change has always been a part of the emerging present, creeping up on us unawares. But this was such a cruel way to make that change, and I do not believe that it had to be that way. And yet, deep within my being, there is something else I know. It had to happen. Yes, it could have been prevented. Yes, there could have been a kinder way. Yes, it could have been done differently. And yet, that was never an option for me. It's so hard to understand. My mind freezes at the thought of what has happened. But my soul, strange creature, revels in the pain. It comes alive and guides me in ways I cannot fathom. I feel it searching for a way forward. It's so alert, protecting me and directing me and guiding me not to repeat the injustice that has been done to me. There's something it knows that I don't know, like a half-veiled secret that cannot be fully revealed. I get but a glimpse of a world where the pain doesn't matter. It isn't the point. It's an experience. It will pass. It is part of being human. I have a chance here to do something my soul has longed for. I barely know what it is, and yet I am led over and over again to something bigger than what I can see with my eyes as they survey the human mess, the situation unfolding, the daily circumstances of a small drama. My soul knows what it is doing. It is a moment it has waited for many, many years. It thrills to the challenge of rising up, speaking out, leading, directing, knowing what must be done. It comes in waves. There is clarity and beauty, followed by darkness and despair. There is confidence and movement, followed by stuckness and stagnation. There is a bright future, followed by the memory of the dim past. It is bitter, it is sweet, it hurts, it radiates. It is dull, dead, dispirited. It is brilliant and exquisite. This is the excruciating experience of a soul in motion, coming alive to its own potential, remembering what it came here for. It doesn't care at all about all the should have beens and could have beens and if onlys. It doesn't care about the pain and disruption and confusion. These are food for its essence, giving it knowledge and experience in a real place, somewhere in a real universe, where it can experience its own beauty, its magnificence, its brilliance. How strange to be the one who is in the middle of this becoming of a soul who chose to be human. It is impossible to understand with any depth why such a choice was made. But there is no doubt that there is no mistake in this messy existence on Earth. I just want to share that I feel, that every single one of us has experienced this deeply and personally, and we are all experiencing this collectively. We are all right in this journey now, betrayed in a way by ourselves and betrayed by our leaders, betrayed by people we put trust in unwisely, betrayed by our own lack of clarity and courage and awareness and power. And these are the stories, these are the dramas that call us to be better human beings. And that really is the story of the book. And people ask me why I'm publishing it and why I'm publishing it now. And I will just say, as I said at the beginning, I didn't write a book. I wrote initially for myself. When I read things to myself, it was like, oh, wow, this is what's happening everywhere. And in the end, it demanded to be shared, because I feel that when we share these things that are so painful at times and so beautiful at the same time, it can be a help. There were times when I really didn't know, like it says in what I just read, I didn't know what was forward and what was backward, and what was up and what was down, and what's right and what's wrong. And I've often needed somebody or something that shows me, just go this way, Sarah, because that's the way that's going forward, not backward. We get so easily pulled backward when we get knocked off our feet by something that's happening in the world. Whether it's personal or public, it really doesn't matter. And we need to know how to stay on our feet, even if we can only see one step. We need to be able to take that step, and then the next step, and the next step. We need to handle the hurt and do whatever we can. This, in a way, is a book of compost, I would say, a compost of the hurt, the incomprehension of the world that I have been born into, that I know could work in a better way. And how do we turn all of that pain and misunderstanding into compost for that better world, so that it can actually grow right in the world that we're in, not in some fantasy vision that sits out in the future and that we are not connected to in any real way. So that's why I published it, because it feels important to me simply to share my experience of that, because it might enable you to share your experience. That's all, that we can share our experience with each other. And then the more of us who are doing that, the more we are building, growing the compost, and then growing things in the compost, which in many cases for people here are businesses, they're new systems, they are beautiful work that is being brought into the world right now. That is that better system, that better way of doing things that we've dreamed of. And that will grow in the compost of the current system. So it's a composting book, if you like. So what I would like to do now is, I have 3 friends who I've invited to speak. I haven't asked them to say anything in particular. I haven't given them any cues, really. They've read the book, and I would simply like to ask them to speak from their heart around what we're talking about here. So Thomas White, I would like to ask you if you would go first.
Okay. It's such a familiar territory, and at the same time, so foreign. Foreign for me because it's a territory that I believe could be so terror-oriented. Nonetheless, I know that unless I step into it, that which is most important to me won't be possible. So it's gripping, it's emotional, it's the piece you wrote is very tumultuous. And I remember, I think I told you, I was once working with I'm gonna work with a shadow, like, and then I realized, oh crap, what did I say to myself? What am I doing? And it showed up, like, sure enough. And I didn't appreciate the gift that it is. It's a gift, and it's hard to see it when I'm in it, but now I can see it, and as it arises again, I can be more aware. And this is, to me, this is a book that's one to come back to often, rather than say, I want to read the whole thing through, because that's like, it's overwhelming. It's really overwhelming to do that. I read it so I could fulfill your request, but I'm go back and sip it now. So I can really engage each thing and let myself remember or experience what I haven't experienced, and to continue that process.
Thank you, Thomas.
Welcome.
Thank you. Karen, here I am. Thomas is, I should say at least a little bit why I have made these requests before we come to you, Karen. So Thomas has, we met probably 18 months ago through one of the transformances. We didn't meet initially. Gary, Thomas and Beth, who's sitting next to him, met Gary, the musician who I've mentioned, who's here as well. And Gary played some of these recordings, and Thomas, I think, said, I want to meet her, and proceeded to meet her and continued to meet her, her being she. There's a piece in the book called She, which is her, which is not her, it's all of us. And we have met almost probably every week for quite a long time now. And he has been a tremendous mentor for me in the challenges of business navigation. He has way more experience than me, but I don't think that that's the important thing. I think the important thing is that we connected over exactly what we're talking about here. We connected over a vision of a better world that needs to be real, not a vision. It needs to be coming into being and being grown like a real plant. And we have found over and over again, from very different perspectives and really in many ways very different backgrounds, this kind of meeting of the processing of what's going on in the energy field at the time. And so it's been a very it's been very fruitful, a very fruitful time, actually. And you were there at some very difficult times for me as well, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'd like to invite Karen O'Brien. Karen appears on paper to be a client. She's doing many courses that I offer, but she started speaking very much with her own voice around this writing. And I found that she had this incredibly beautiful voice that she expresses things through. It was amazing to me. I hadn't really come across something like that before, and it was being written about things that I had written. And there was such a meeting, such a connecting point, that it was quite obvious that I would invite her to say something. And she's actually, we've agreed, she offered to do a series of really deep interviews around this because she really gets it. And we're going to do that, and I'm so looking forward to it. So I'm going to say thank you in advance to you, Karen, for your recognition, I think, of what we're doing here. It's not really we are doing here.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh, I have to say, the swan behind you, one of the things I feel like this book has done is I feel like I've been in conversation with life, inanimate and animate, all my life since I was a little girl. And this has brought that so much more alive. The work I've done with you, and I'm in the leading edge currently winding down with Sarah and some of the other people on here. And this book, The Swan Behind You, is just breathtaking to me. It's a really significant symbol for me. So I'm sort of receiving. I feel like it's life loving itself all over the place here. But Sarah, I've been in relationship with this book, and usually I'm in relationship when I have a book, it's the paperback, like I'm with it and I'm loving it and I'm underlining and I'm folding and I'm, it's just, I have some of those favorite books, and I'm looking forward to I saw the copy in your hand and I was like, oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I've got a box of 10 on my desk, so I will send you one.
No, I'm going to get one on Amazon as soon as they're ready. So, but Sarah had mentioned something about this book that she was writing, or these poetic essays that she was writing, in one of our conversations in the Leading Edge. And I wound up writing her. We have a little Signal group, and I said, I'd like to read it. Would you be willing to let me read it? And, the opposite of you, Thomas, I did not sip it. I could not stop. The minute I started reading, I couldn't stop. And I'd actually like to just write, I wrote something to Sarah, and I'm just going to go with that, if that's cool. I just wrote, thank you so much for sharing this with me. Once I started, I could not stop. Every bit of what you wrote took me on an experiential journey and a deep, rich, and intimate dive into your personal and collective journey of wrestling with freedom. It touched into elements of my own wrestling and experience. Your invitation and the journey was generous and generative and deeply resonant, personal and epic at the same time. Some of the questions you asked and imagery and phrases that you wrote are things I've felt and thought and written in my journal, some of them verbatim, actually.
Yeah.
and poems since I was young and throughout my life. And then this is a part, the book Fears, and this is what Sarah used on the back of her book, which to me is like the greatest honor. This book is fierce, evocative, piercing, and vulnerable, tender, beautiful, and revelatory. It completely drew me in. It's an exquisite anthem and clarion call. I know this will be a gift that keeps giving for me and for many. And I don't think I've ever used the phrase clarion call in my life. And I went and I looked it up, like I kind of know what it is, but I looked it up and it just really resonated. And I feel like the music, there's the song of the future, this, life singing is so profound. And I'm just going to read, I didn't get to read the Singing Life, which is the very last part. And Sarah, I'm just going to read a few lines from that. I hope maybe that's going to be one you read here or there. But
No, I'm not going to read that one. You're welcome.
Oh, good. I mean, it's not in your beautiful accent and voice, but I read Singing Life and I just wrote her and I said, exquisite. It speaks profoundly to the multidimensional, multivariant, enlivening, ennobling experience of participating in creation. You make this seeming ineffable, effable. And these are just a few of the lines from that one. It is beauty being beautiful. It is glory glorying in its own existence. It is joy bubbling and spreading and sharing itself for no reason whatsoever. I could feel I felt like the book enlivened and activated so much in my system. And I just want to tell, like Sarah talks about results, and this book has created results in me. And there's this level of aliveness and consciousness that's really shifting. And Bill Moyers, maybe because some of you guys are in the States, you might know who he is. I worked with him about 30 years ago on a documentary. And he was somebody that before I met him and before I worked with him, I was like, he had done that series with Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, and that living conversation. And he had done a lot of those. And I remember at one point saying, like, and I was a journalist and documentarian with him, but his life really spoke to me so much. And those kinds of living conversations were so profound to me. And I read the book in early May, and I feel like I've been in relationship with it through these months. And he died on June 26th, which was my birthday. And I've never, and I've stayed in relationship with him over the years. And I've never, I don't post like something on Facebook where I write something, and I wound up pouring out like a tribute to him that was about sort of really wanting to carry on his legacy. And years ago, I had said this thing about, I want to be my generation's Bill Moyers, and in those kinds of living conversations. And I really felt when I was reading this book and the body of Sarah's work, the body of Sarah's work, which I feel like is really in this, that I would want to do that with her, that I felt like I'm ready, like I needed to do my, all that beginning of the wrestling with freedom. That territory that you walk through, I've been in my own unique way, but then journeying with you and everybody has been so profound. So I just really want to say thank you. And, I thought at the beginning of your book, when it's like, starts with enough is enough. Oh, I got a thumbs down. Enough is enough. I'll stop. Enough is enough. At the end, I was like, enough is enough. Like it's like two ways. So anyway, thank you, Sarah. And it's so wonderful to be here. And I can't wait to have my book.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. And yeah, I can't wait to really go deep, just be able to talk freely and openly around this stuff. It feels important. It just feels, it's such a beautiful thing to do. And when you do something beautiful, we add a little to the beauty of the world. And I feel that's what we're here for. So my third, what do I call you? Person who I've invited to speak is Forrest Wilson. Some of you will know Forrest because we've done many interviews together, which I've shared through my emails. and we ran an event last year called the Wellbeing Economy. We've known each other for quite a few years, and Forrest immersed himself in Love Money, Money Loves You, and used to speak as money in meetings with his own community, I think, and really just persistently kept saying, Sarah, I want to interview you. He kept coming and just kind of like connecting, and every time we spoke, we connected just so naturally. It was like we share the same ground. And then a bit more than a year ago, we were talking and we realized that we'd been doing work around well-being, the deep, what Forrest will call the ground of well-being and what I will call the well of being, which came out of some of this struggle. You know, I needed a new level of well-being that for all my 30 years of energy work and managing my own health and managing everything without any normal, you know, medical and those kinds of things, I needed a level of well-being I wasn't able to access, and I found it. And Forrest, at a very similar time, found the same space, and so we connected even more deeply. So Forrest is a brother in spirit, and sister as well, I would say. Probably I'm your brother and sister too. So yeah, I'd love you to speak a little bit, Forrest.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Hey, everyone. It's good to be here with you. Well, for me, this book, Sarah, that you've put together speaks to the heart of so much that's essential in our world right now. I first opened the electronic version of this document that Sarah sent, and my body just let out this like, just huge sigh of relief, which I often feel with Sarah. It comes when there's a grounded and sincere way of being able to be with the depth of what is, and to not run away from it, to not exaggerate it, to not romanticize it, to not get swept up and lost in it, but to just be able to sit right in the heart of it and allow yourself to be impacted by it and be available for the innate goodness that we are to be in relationship with it and support it. And so I felt so met, and I felt so much relief opening the book and starting to read. It's just that kind of satiation that comes from realness. And it's very nourishing, very nutrient rich to receive for me, and actually quite relaxing. It's like finally something that can just be with what is unabashedly and unequivocally. Like even as the shaking or the disturbance is happening, there's a deeper silence and stillness and steadiness that permeates through. And that's the ground that Sarah's speaking about, the well of being, the ground of well-being. I also want to speak to the experience that I had in relationship with time going through the book. I initially read the book from beginning to end, and then I read the book backwards from end to beginning. And I realized starting at the end, like, oh, these chapters are coming from the future. And the more I read back to the beginning chapters, the farther I go into the past. And of course, the past and the future are here, available to us in this moment, living in this moment. But it's a real testament to the we component of this, of what world do we want to live in? What timeline do we want to be on? And in the work that Sarah and I do together, we're very aware that what we create in this world is infused with the consciousness that it's created from. We pay a lot of attention to where we're coming from in relationship with our life, in relationship with our business, relationship with other people. And, all of us on this call have the capacity here to create a resonance field strong enough to change the constructed reality that we're all walking around and interfacing with in this moment. So I say that because to me, this book is an invitation to really take back our power that we've projected onto society and systems and culture and dogma and shoulds and supposed tos and ought tos and how we're supposed to be and these type of things, and to really, as Sarah said, come back to the beauty of who we are and take back our power and go, okay, you know, as Sarah writes, right? It's like, on the one hand, I'm just a tiny piece of salt in a vast ocean, and I'm also the entirety of everything. And so just really coming back home to our essence, coming back home to the power of love, and that we are enough, that right here, right now, in this moment, that we are enough and that we're capable and able. There's such a deep strength and resilience and like tender fierceness, right? That comes through in the transmission of this book. And it's liberating and confronting, which I like. I want it for us to be confronting. Helps us see ourselves and know ourselves in our creatorship. So, as always, Sarah, I'm just honored to know you. I lovingly dubbed myself your biggest fan, although I'm sure there's many people here who would fight me on that. But yeah, just thanks for being the gift that you are and being available for things like this to come through you. It's such a gift to the world. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Forrest. Really, you speak to the important thing, which is that we are participating in creation in every moment of our lives. And when we realize that, we live our lives differently. When we're weighed down by the weight of things that don't feel right or that feel unfair or that we're railing against in some way, we're not able to be really aware how powerful we are in creation. When we're able to integrate all of that, not reject, because I've tried rejecting and my clients try rejecting, and everything just gets louder and noisier and worse, and they hate everything more and more. It's like, it doesn't work. When we can integrate all that darkness, all that rejection, all that despair and incomprehension at the state of the world, or the state of just human beings who can't even get along in their own personal relationships. You know, we fight at home, we fight in communities, we fight between nations, we fight between leaders. How is it we know better than this? We know that we know better, and everyone does. And it's that space. It's us accessing that space and standing in, like, really, when the fight arises, how do I navigate this? How do I deal with all the things that happen to me as a human being and not run away from them? When we integrate that, then we are operating in what I call creation power. In creation, we are participating as fully willing participants in creation itself. And the final piece, which I am not going to read you, Karen mentioned it, it's called Singing Life. That is really my creation piece, the final piece in the book. I will leave you to find that one for yourself. But I will read one more, just need to find the page, which is called I Need Nothing More, because this kind of was on the journey. It was a very beautiful moment for me. It feels worth sharing because I think any of us can access this quite easily, really. In a troubled moment during the night, I saw my soul, but I have no words in my language that can match my experience. Our jewels are coarse by comparison, but they are the closest we come to imitating something of such exquisite beauty that it is simply a marvel to know of its nature. The lines that define shapes in my soul are so fine that no artist could ever come close to drawing them. The colors are so bright and so clear that they do not exist in our three-dimensional world, nor in our imagination or our dreams. The existence of my soul in me contrasts so starkly with the physical presence I am familiar with that I struggle to hold them both in the same breath. And yet it is unmistakable. It is a part of me. It is inside my being in a way I can't describe. It is also a part of everything. It is currently experiencing being me, but at the same time, it is experiencing being everything. It has a shape and expression that is uniquely associated with my current life, and it has the potential and actualization of being all life simultaneously. It is comforting to meet my soul in this way. Its abiding presence is reassuring amidst the dramas of a very human life. It requires nothing of me and has no agenda or purpose for my life. It affords me the freedom to live as I choose, whilst it peacefully resides within. I wonder why I am here, but it's a question that has no relevance. It is inevitable that I am here. How could it be otherwise? I am the water in the lake and the stars in the sky. I don't know why I exist. There is no answer to why. I see that I have tried too hard in my life with everything I have done. I made myself tired with trying when there was nothing that required so much effort. Trying is pretending that life doesn't know how to live and that I, as a tiny particle of the whole, know better. It's understandable, but extraordinary. How could I have been so mistaken? Everywhere I look, I see different parts of life, living out their lives with grace and beauty. The trees stand tall in front of my window with no knowledge of how to hold their branches or grow their leaves. How did we fool ourselves into thinking that if we study ourselves enough, we will beat nature at its own game? All my knowledge and experience fall silent at the sight of my soul. It is more beautiful than I could have dared to ask for. It speaks its language in every breath I breathe, every heartbeat, every movement. It never asks me to understand it or listen to it or make something happen, nor does it ask me not to do any of those things. It is a living, breathing aspect of being. Its beauty penetrates from time to time through the fog of daily perception, reminding me that it exists. I am grateful to know. I need nothing more. As I read, I think back of myself younger. I could never have said or read that about myself. I could never have publicly expressed the beauty of an aspect of my being because that wasn't the thing to do. Like, we didn't talk about the darkness, we didn't talk about the beauty and the brilliance, but we all share that beauty. And it comes through the book. It's like my soul wants to shine, not so that it can say, hey, I'm brighter than yours. It's so that it can see your soul shining too. That's what we do. And so for us as human beings to be able to connect with each other and speak these things out loud and then speak life into being, that is what we are doing. And that is the opportunity we have now to influence the future of our collective existence, because we know this in our essence. And the beautiful journey of bringing together that soul in this clunky, clumsy body with this weird mind that goes all over the place and messes up so often, that combination is so powerful, the uniting of these very different elements of our being. So to me, that's what this is all about. And the book is a story of my personal journey that might be interesting to share. We have 5 minutes. I will put a link. It's very difficult to do links for books because if I put Amazon US, it doesn't work in Australia. And but I'll put the link in the chat anyway. If you want to buy it, it's called Wrestling with Freedom. Amazon responds to those words and produces the book immediately, so that it's not competing with any others at the moment. If you just put my name or put that book, you'll find it. And I would like to first of all say thank you to you for being here and for participating in this moment of kind of launching and birthing of this book out in the public. And I'd also like to say that I'm happy to stay on for a little while. If you have questions or there's anything you just want to talk about, I would love to do that. So formally, we can end here. And informally, I always love a good chat about important things. As Nico said in the launch yesterday, she said, whenever you're in a conversation with Sarah, we never talk about ordinary things. I think that's true. So yeah, I would love to talk if you want to. So feel free to stay on for a little while if you'd like. We'll have our little living room chat here. And really thank you from my heart for being here, and for being in each other's lives. It's really quite a remarkable thing that we do for each other. All right, so if anyone has anything you want to say or ask, I think the easiest thing is to put your hand up, raise your hand or unmute yourself, or I'll just get the chat open, write a question in the chat if you want to. I think I saw that Gary raised his hand. Gary, you mentioned so many times here.
What an honor, what a beautiful thing to hear. And, there was so much that you shared that I didn't really know what was going on inside of you when we were recording these things together. But what I want to say is, I was in as much of a wonder and awe that whatever came through first take was, we were just doing first take after first take. And I think that when I actually thought about where you were coming from, I was astounded that your driver wasn't your frontal lobe. It was something completely different. and I know that was probably true for me as well, but I was using another language than words. But I just want to say that that first piece that you read is so important for me, because I'm in the middle of kind of my version of what I'm going to do right now. And it's so empowering to just clarify what a roller coaster it is. And this isn't about me when I fall and crash. It's about the process of fall down, get up, fall down. It's the way it works, right? It has to go up and down. And that's part of the process of evolving.
The hardest thing, Gary, about that book is that it follows that journey. Every time you think you get some relief, it throws you back into the maelstrom of chaos. And then you find peace again. And then again, it's just like, it goes crazy. That's life. And out of all of that emerges just increasing moments of peace, increasing beauty, and it becomes more stable.
Well, and when you described that the soul was delighted to have the challenge, that it wanted to go into the mess because, okay, now we're going to get something done. The way you described it was so valid, it was helpful for me to say, okay, the soul has adopted this human, let's give it a shot, let's give it all it needs to take over my humanness, So thank you for, as always, Forrest, the way you expressed yourself. It's just beautiful to hear how much integration of Sarah's work you have applied to your own life and your own experience. It was beautiful to hear you express it. And I don't know any of you, but I feel such a bond because I know that you've heard a part of my heart by what it was like creating these transformances, but even more important, the frequency that Sarah brings us to is so edifying and satisfying and affirming. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? Anything else coming up? Yeah, Liz.
Hello, everyone. Very lovely to be introduced to a part of this book. Sarah, I'm really looking forward to reading more of it. What's striking me is I feel like one of the most important things we can be connected to right now is there's nothing broken if you go deep enough and if you go broad enough. There's an order that's holding the chaos and the disorder. And I just want to acknowledge that not everybody can speak that message in a way that won't be very upsetting for people for whom things feel very, very broken. And I'm just thinking of images coming in from Gaza and just some of the terrible things that are happening right now. But you have I think it's maybe because of where it's coming from. There's a channeling in how you share. You have a way of being able to say it that makes it a very receptive message. And I just think that is so essential right now. So I'm really celebrating your book,
Thank
and I
you,
can't wait to
Liz.
read the whole thing.
It's interesting in that context, you know, the first section of the book is actually about war. I've never experienced a war, but we all experience war because we experience it in our own lives. You know, people fight. And when I started writing, I wasn't intending to write about war. There were, I think, 3 different pieces. And at one point I wrote about a silence. You know, it's kind of like in a war, it would be after a bombardment or after it appears that things have ended. And it was like I was in the middle of the Second World War. And I knew that. I grew up in Britain. So, you know, my family is British. My parents went through it. But it was like, we know every bit of this inside ourselves. I know war. I know peace. And I think because of that, because I can write about it from the inside of it, because this knowing comes, it doesn't come in, it's already here. It's just, it's in every one of us. That it astounded me in a way to realize that what I was writing was real. So thank you. Yeah, and the biggest reason why I felt I must publish it is because of the tendency of human beings. When I heard that all the European leaders at the moment in a major global peace conference were talking about war, not peace, it was just like, no, like we cannot do that again. We cannot, and anything that we can add to the making of peace is important. Thank you, Liz. Matt. So for those of you who haven't, many of you have met Matt's voice on we did a podcast, we did 100 episodes of a podcast together called The Spirit of Business. So if you've only met the voice, you're about to meet the man.
Thanks, Sarah. And yes, I do have a different voice than many of you on the call. So, look, I just wanted to, you know, it's overwhelming for me to sit and listen to all of you talk about Sarah, and also Sarah Reed from the book, and you know, experience Gary's work and Sarah's work. It's profound and it's amazing. And I just wanted to say thank you for the gift that you are and the gift that you give, Sarah. And you know, the personal friendship that I have with you, I'm extremely grateful for, and just wanted to thank you for once again, you know, producing such beautiful work, and I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you. Thank you for being my friend, and thank you to all of you. We are, even when we don't know each other, we connect through this kind of work, and we are friends in many different forms. And it's important for us to know that, I think, in today's world. We're in many different countries here, but there's a deep connection. Well, thank you, and I will see you again somewhere soon, no doubt. And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your presence to this moment. And may we go out and do beautiful things, because I know that that's what's possible. Okay.